Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to our bonus episode for the week. And we say bonus episode because we already did our race recap and breakdown with Cade Clayson. So if you haven't heard that one, go check it out. It was a great episode. It ran long. We had a lot to talk about for the race recap. But this bonus episode is something that we were anticipating for a really long time. We have Tyler Bowers joining us. So Tyler Bowers is kind of causing a big stir right now with the infamous pass that was made on Justin Barcia this past weekend that ultimately ended up in his disqualification from the night show. So, or the remaining part of the night show. So, interesting story. Tyler was supposed to join us a couple weeks ago, right after San Diego, but the Limegate issue threw a monkey wrench in our plans on that. And we've been back and forth with Tyler kind of talking about that, as well as now this issue that came up this past weekend. So it was an interesting conversation. Tyler is a great guy. For anybody who's had any sort of feelings about him based on the way he rides, certainly encourage you to listen to this. I think you'll change your mind for sure. Super nice guy, articulate, well-spoken. He's a great advocate and a really good person to have in the rider's corner every weekend on Saturday, especially with all of the stuff that's going on with Feld now. So he's super supportive of the sport and his fellow riders. And we had a great conversation with him. So again, if you missed our race recap episode, go check that one out. We had Cade Clayson on, and definitely we encourage you to listen to the whole conversation with Tyler. So AJ, do you want to get into the giveaway again?
Yeah, so Dave at the Collective Experience is giving away a copy of Supercross 2, the video game. So the way we're going to do this giveaway, super easy. Actually, almost too easy to win a $60 video game. So what we're going to do is, all you have to do is go onto Instagram, follow the Collective EX Instagram account, follow Covering All Topics podcast Instagram account, and then just simply comment on our latest photo, which console you want your copy of the video game for, whether it's PS4 or Xbox. And we're going to choose a winner, and simple as that. So pretty cool. Dave at the Collective Experience has already sponsored a handful of our episodes. He has brings in fans every single weekend for the races. We have interns coming to the races to work alongside me, and it's a pretty darn awesome program and something I definitely recommend you guys go check out. So Bryce, what's the website that they can go check it out at?
If you want to learn more about the Collective Experience, go to thecollectivexp.com. And for those of you who don't know what the Collective Experience is, it's an immersive fan experience that is basically like an internship, a mini internship that allows the diehard fans to get in the trenches with their favorite riders in the pits, become part of their program for the day, wrench on their bikes, be really part of the team and really get a foot in the door in the industry. And Dave has actually had interns and people who've been in the Collective Experience program go on to actually work in the industry. So there's a lot of success stories. It's very fun. I've had the opportunity to be in the pits with some of the interns, and so I can tell you firsthand, and AJ obviously, they are very hands-on. They really feel they're part of the team. So it's an awesome opportunity to become really engrossed in the whole experience, learn more about the events, the riders, what it takes to run a Supercross team, and really kind of get the nitty-gritty. So definitely check them out, thecollectivexp.com. Follow that Instagram account, The Collective X, which is The Collective EX. That's the Instagram handle. Follow our Covering All Topics podcast Instagram. Comment which console you want the game. You're entered.
Easy as pie.
Easy peasy. All right, so without further ado, please welcome Tyler Bowers. So today we have a very special guest, the man of the hour right now in Supercross, for better or worse. Tyler Bowers joins us, and we thank him very much for his participation in this. We couldn't have picked a better week to have him on the show. Though he was slated to come on a couple weeks ago, and then the whole Limegate issue happened. So, Tyler, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So we know you're a little under the weather. We won't keep you too long today. But where do we want to start, my friend? AJ, why don't you lead it off?
Yeah, I mean, we were supposed to have Tyler on, 2 weeks ago, right
Yeah.
after San Diego. And we put you in a group chat to kind of give you the breakdown of how our podcast was going to work. It was really going to run off just like a normal podcast. And then all hell broke loose. So everything kind of changed from there. And next thing you know, we're in a group chat with all the, 35 different pro riders, and this and that is happening. And the past 2 weeks have kind of been pretty hectic, I would say, huh? And I say hectic for myself, but Tyler, you took on the brunt of the responsibility. You want to talk to us kind of about how that happened, how you fell into that position?
Yeah, it's been super stressful. But yeah, just after San Diego and a lot of the riders affected by the Lyme there, a lot of guys were angry and upset and wanted to get lawyers and other people involved. And my whole goal was to kind of try to keep that out. I didn't want it to get too messy. And talking with a couple of the top riders, that ended up bailing on me actually. But talking with those guys, they got this idea together and the group together to have a meeting with Feld the next weekend in Minneapolis. And I've worked closely with Mike Newey in the past, so I called Mike and asked him if he would do it, and he was all up for it. And basically, yeah, just started with, let's get a group of people together, a group of riders together to meet, and just kind of open up communication with the promoter and see where we can go from there. So yeah, we had the meeting in Minneapolis. AJ, you were there, and I think it went really well. Just for the not necessarily focused on San Diego or anything, just for the fact that they were open to listening to the riders and what we had to say and doing it. They want to do it every weekend, and so I think yeah, we did it again in Arlington. I think in the future we're going to do it each weekend, and it's only going to get better and get some ground and gain some footing and just improve each weekend.
Right. Now, my question, sorry, Bryce, my questions are going to come from all over the place. But as you say that, and you said a couple of the top guys bailed on you, what do you think it is? What's the reasoning for these guys not wanting to stick behind it? Or is it the time commitment they're not willing to put aside, or do they not want to piss anybody off? What do you think that's due to?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I think a little bit is the time commitment. A lot of guys, they want to be part of this. They just don't want to put in the work to do it. They have other things they think are more important, which I get. A lot of the guys get so focused on their little routine and think if anything goes wrong, it's the whole day's off. And now myself, after having a kid, I realize it's not like that. There's things get kind of crazy after having a kid. Your week gets messed up. Some days you can't ride, some days you can, and your training isn't always perfect. But sometimes it's even better for the weekend. But so I think a little bit it's the time constraint with some guys not wanting to spend any time anywhere other than sleeping in the day of the race and going to the track, doing their track walk, their practice, and then going from there. And then also I think some of the guys don't have they didn't give it a chance to know exactly what we're about. It's not about just going in there and raising hell and kicking chairs over and trying to get more money for the Lyme incident or something like that. It's about just going in and being peaceful and talking things through and communicating and trying to make things better for the sport in general.
So Tyler, you've kind of emerged as a pretty outspoken leader amongst the riders, and I must say, just like outside looking in, you've really done a good job articulating your points very well. You're very well spoken, well written, and you seem to convey your message in a really concise way. So props to you for that, and I think that a lot of the riders are looking up to you in that regard right now. What are your big goals with Feld, and what would you and AJ, this kind of extends to you also, what if you had a couple takeaways that you would really like to see Feld or any of the organizers do as a result of these meetings and you being proactive? Where do you think you'd start? What would be your biggest goals?
I think that's where we've started already, and the biggest goal is just to keep the communication open and have Feld and the promoters listen to the riders more, where keep us involved in decisions like, oh, are we going to use the Lyme, or are we going to change this on the track between practices, or things like that. And it's already gotten to that point. This last weekend during our meeting, we talked about using lime again, and it will be used in Detroit and Indianapolis. They're going to add it to the dirt, 4 days prior when they're mixing the dirt in their stockpile before they bring it in. But once it gets to the stadium, that's the end of it. They're not adding any more at that point. So like things like that, and just kind of keeping the riders in the loop is my main goal right now. Is just the safety aspect and being able to be an actual organization of riders having a voice, on behalf of other riders is the main goal for me.
So we talked a little bit on several of the episodes now about the breakdown of communication and what seems to be like the marginalization of the riders, especially when it comes to their concerns with safety, with track build, with the logistics of the day, things like that. Where do you think that breakdown is coming from, if you were to speculate?
I think just like the biggest problem is everybody gets there and kind of has their blinders on. The riders get there and they're so focused on the race day and the schedule that's there, and then the promoters get there and they're so like focused on the show and making sure there aren't any kinks in it and everything's on time. Track builders do their thing. Some of the riders try to voice things to some track builders, but sometimes it kind of falls on deaf ears. Sometimes like there's guys that claim some outlandish things, some riders that want something changed that's just kind of stupid. So the track builders or promoter got to weed that out. So I think most of it is just like like I said, lack of communication and not knowing that everybody's kind of on the same page, which is where my goal with having the group together is just having a group of guys that you can see that, oh, these guys are all on the same page. They've spoken about this during the week, and then they came here with an agenda and they want this fixed and this changed. So that's my main goal.
Right. In hindsight, it seems so obvious because, on race day when we're actually all in front of each other and you have 12 different guys saying they want 12 different things done to the track. Well,
Right.
yeah, of course, they're not going to be able to make a decision right then and there.
Mhm.
So with
Right.
this having happened, it's become obvious that we have to delegate a couple people that are essentially the liaisons between the riders and Feld and or Dirtworks, and just have that communication open on race day. So let's say you go up to Randy at Dirtworks and you say, listen, I had 8 guys come up to me that this really needs to be adjusted. They can go out and make that adjustment. And I think
Right.
that was like part of Reed's frustration in the first meeting was, I think that he said that's word for word. He said it falls on deaf ears on race day. So you would, a rider would go up and request the change, but only coming from one rider, and maybe they think it's from a selfish standpoint that they wouldn't do anything about it. And it becomes frustrating for sure. I think this weekend was an example of there was some positives, and there was also I came into your van and discussed how there was actually 3 obstacles that were changed or altered
Mm-hmm.
this week, and unless they just didn't tell me, I don't think they told anybody about the changes.
No, they didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Even like where they took out for the positive, the one before the finish line, they kind of fixed that section. Instead of having the 3 bumps there, they just made a little double, and it was definitely positive, but they didn't tell anybody about that. It wasn't like they were like, hey, we just changed, be careful the first lap, we changed that section over there. Like, oh, okay. It was just, all right, go for it.
Right. And it was for the positive, which is great. And same thing with after the finish, they turned those little jumps around the corners into rollers, which that was a positive change in my opinion.
Yep.
But at least let the riders know. And then the big one was where they turned the ski jump across the start line into a much steeper version of it.
Right.
And when I mentioned it to you, you didn't even know what I was talking about. But Barsha must have about killed himself on it.
Yeah, I saw the video. He like endoed pretty hard on that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We talked about it last night. Is that as pros, we expect the environment to be fairly controlled. So when we go out on lap 1, it's not like we're out there at our local fair race and you would always take a slow lap just to ensure that there's nothing crazy out there.
Right.
We go out pretty hard lap 1. So we need to know if there's a change, whether it's for the worse or for the better. We need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, especially those qualifying practices, the whole practice is basically race mode. I tend to be the guy that kind of waits around and gets a clear track at the beginning, and then when I go over the finish line the first lap, that's my first like heater, and sometimes you don't
Right.
see the whole track before you get to the finish line. So it would be nice to know, hey, we changed these things over here before the first lap.
And it does seem like it's got to be a pretty easy fix. I mean, just have when you guys are lining up, just have somebody make an announcement. You know, when the bikes are
Yeah.
off before the flag drops, like, "Hey guys, just a heads up, we did this, this, or this." I mean, that seems like it's a really easy message to get across to everybody, and to if they want to promote safety, and safety is their big thing, I think that would be a pretty easy fix that would go a long way.
Yeah, I think all the guys have headsets on. They can easily communicate that to the guy at the gate with us, and then he can go down the line and tell us what's going on. For instance, before that practice we're talking about, they made it a point to tell us as soon as the gate drops that we need to go over the gate because guys will be coming back the other way soon. But that was the most important thing to them, rather than telling us, hey, we made all these changes to the track as well.
Yeah. Why do you think they don't speak up and say that? Do you think it just gets overlooked, or they don't think it's a big deal? I'm curious to know what their thought process is behind that.
I really don't know. I think maybe it gets overlooked, or being at factory teams before, I know they're pretty in the know. Like they somehow, I don't know if they only
Do they
tell
just
like the
assume that we
factory
know?
teams. Yeah, I think maybe they just assume that we know. Like it's obvious that they made some track changes, but they forget that we don't. Like they're staying there. A lot of the officials are staying down on the floor by the track the whole time during the day, where we go back to the pits and then come back. So it's like we're not down there on the floor to see, they started a skid steer and a dozer up and they went out on the track. They must have changed something. You know what I mean? We're actually back in the pits doing our own thing, going over our bike and making changes to that. So I don't know if they think that we just know or what exactly is it.
We've had an experience this year where Bryce, you called me and said, "Hey, I'm watching Supercross live or Race Day Live,
Race Day
whatever
Live,
it's
yeah.
called, and it looks like they're changing the whoops. So just a heads up." I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
cool! Like, thanks for letting me know."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, no, it's just nobody would believe that. But it really does just seem like a better communication would go a long way, especially for things like that. And I think you're right. I think they'd probably just take for granted that every privateer has a resource that's
Right.
managing that kind of thing. And the reality is that they don't oftentimes.
Yeah, I mean, at like I said, at the factory teams, I've been on the starting line numerous times for like the heat race or something, and then they've radioed down to my mechanic, hey, they changed this, or the whoops are different, or hey, like watch out for that giant hole over there in that corner, and my mechanic's like, hey, there's this and this that's changed, and this is going on out there, but not everybody on the starting line has that resource.
Right. So moving on to, and we're talking about tracks and track conditions and track changes. It's a good segue into something we started talking to Cade Clayson last night about, and that's their attempt to make the tracks safer. By discouraging quadding. We talked about the little singles that they're adding before the rhythm sections to discourage tripling in, and then having the ability to more easily quad. What do you think about that? Do you think that the tracks are becoming a little too ubiquitous, a little too similar?
Yeah, I think when they go and they went down this road before, and I know they've seen this, and then kind of reverted back to their old ways. But they think sometimes making tracks safer does not mean making them easier or faster. Well, I guess when you make them easier, they tend to be faster. For example, this weekend the track was it was pretty damn fast. Because they try to make it easier. They try to do some things so you're not quadding in the rhythm sections, and then making the transitions like further apart. But that ends up making the track faster, and then what might be great for them, for example, 14 riders within 1 second on times, is really, really, really bad safety wise, because if you got all these riders that are within a second on times that are normally not that close together, then you've got guys like, Tomac and the top guys that are trying to gain every little advantage possible to make up that time on guys, that 1/10 in a corner or something like that. So a lot of guys end up riding over their head. And when you ride over your head, that's when you have accidents and then you get injured. So I think making it easier is not always the way. It sometimes makes it worse.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you see that a lot on amateur day, where they simplify the track so much that it actually becomes a danger
Yes.
factor because everyone's scrubbing way too hard and overriding the
Yes.
track for what it's worth, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not only that, but if you're not spreading the guys out, weeding everybody out by just
Yeah.
kind of their natural riding and weeding everybody out, you're congesting the track. You're
Yep.
you're
Yeah.
making it more chaotic.
Yep.
What do you
Yeah,
think that's a
that-
product of? Do you think that's just the fact that the guys making those decisions don't ride and they don't know better, or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just we got to realize what's good for the riders isn't always good for the show either. For example, the slot car racing type tracks where everybody ends up following the leader for 15 laps or so. It's really really sucks for us. But on the other hand, the promoters I'm sure love it because they're like, oh, we had 5 guys, on each other's ass for 15 minutes of the race. It was awesome. Well, yeah, none of them passed each other, but they were as close. They were as close as can be. So they had people on the edges of their seats, So they think, so that's to them that's more exciting than a track that's really separates the skill levels, and you get a guy that kind of runs away with it sometimes.
That's a really good point. I wonder how much adaptation is done throughout the day as qualifiers develop, as the practices go on, and they see how the racing shapes up. I wonder how much that factors into the track changes based on how much TV time people can get, how much battling or lack thereof would all factor into that. That's a good point.
yeah,
It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
And that's frustrating too from a rider standpoint, because I know, for better or for worse, for my end, I always want to see the track as technical as possible. I want to see big whoops, just because, whether I'm hitting the whoops good that day or not. I know, Tyler, obviously you're always hitting them good, so you always want them big, but I just like to see the separation,
Yeah.
where this weekend that there really was none. I got a 15th place start in the LCQ, and I couldn't even barely get around anybody. And you experienced trying to come through the pack too. And the one spot you could really maybe make passes was the whoops, and you just would have to hope that nobody was darting back and forth. So it that becomes a little frustrating as a rider. But then I see the point where they need the ratings to be good, and it needs to be good for the fans. So I don't know. Where do you find that balance?
Right. Well, I think there's no better evidence of that philosophy than the whole format of 2 heats, no semis. They want to keep the top guys on the track for the longest, and they want the most TV time for them. I mean, we get it. You guys are, the long and short of it is, you guys are the product that Monster Energy Supercross sells, and they're gonna do things to maximize the revenue and the ad dollars and all that good stuff. So it's an unfortunate reality, but there has to be some sort of middle ground, because if everybody hates the track, or we get into a scenario like we had this week where 14 guys are within 1 second, that doesn't make for the best racing, although it makes for kind of chaotic racing.
It makes for good. It makes for good racing for them, and the stance that they can say in their ads. Oh, we got 14 guys within 1 second lap time this weekend. The night show is going to be insane,
Right.
So.
And where did you fall into that mix this weekend? You qualified pretty well, correct?
Yeah, I was 9th this weekend.
Where have you been every week compared to that?
Yeah,
12 to 15 or about top 10?
No, yeah, it's been like since Oakland, I've been sitting around like the top 10s, like 8, 9, and then last weekend I was not feeling it at all. It was like, Minneapolis, I wasn't feeling it at all. I think it was 13th or 14th there, and then this weekend was back up to 9th. So,
man, you get overlooked so much as being like, it's pretty funny because you have the guys that are considered the top privateers, with maybe like a LeMay or somebody like that, but you're almost not even considered a privateer, even though you completely are one. You're working out of a Sprinter van and with Chaz and all that with Trigger Racing. But it's almost like you're not put into that conversation with the privateers because you're doing so well. Do you find that happens?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I know it's a pretty gray area what makes you an actual privateer or whatever. But I think, being in a Sprinter van with 2 guys is pretty privateer.
I would say so. Yeah, I saw somebody comment on your Instagram, and I couldn't help but to butt in myself. I was like, listen, he was pitted right next to me, and because the guy mentioned you might want to just go check out the far end of the pits to see what a privateer is really like. And I was like, well,
Oh,
that's Tyler.
yeah, I was in it. I was at the far end with you guys. Yeah, for sure. I definitely get a lot of help. I can't say I don't, but I'm
Right.
very fortunate on that side of things. But
But you should.
yeah,
You're a top 12 450 rider. I mean, you should be a factory rider. And if you're a privateer, you should be getting all the help.
thank you for that.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'm working hard, and it's a lot of work over there trying to run things with just Chaz and I. So, but yeah, you know how it is.
yeah, I have so many questions, Bryce, but I want you to kind of keep this thing on the tracks. Do you have a direction
No,
you
go
want to
ahead.
keep us going?
Well, obviously, I'm sure everybody's on the edge of their seat waiting for us to talk about that pass that's heard around the world. But we want to slow our roll, keep everybody on the hook here for a minute. I want to talk a little bit about how racing overseas is comparing to racing the series in the United States. Now, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's honestly it's quite a bit different. The guys over there, just yeah, different racing styles. I would compare it more to arena cross style racing. A little bit larger. The tracks are different in the aspect that they sometimes maybe do too much, or it's more like I would compare it to like Excite Bike. Lots of option lanes and like they actually steamroll the track. The dirt there's
Yeah.
so like soft and tacky that they when they build it, when they pack it in, they have this little steamroller. They steamroll everything. Um, it's quite a bit different. And there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on there. The guys over there are very good at like jumping the gate. There's certain gates because they use different starting gates at each race each weekend. So there's like certain places guys just get like crazy good starts. My first year there, I got to the point where I would just watch this one guy that always pulled a dang hole shot. I wouldn't even look at the gate. I would just look at his front tire. When he went, I'd go so that like I
No.
would at least be I'd be at least close to him. Where if I looked at the starting gate, he'd be gone. So it's
Wow.
it's quite a bit different over there.
Who was it? Do you know the guy's name?
Yeah, Florent Richet.
Oh, yep.
Very sneaky Frenchman. Love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have a preference?
I just like racing dirt bikes, man. I don't really care. It's pretty fun over there, but for me, it's being an American going to Europe is kind of different and hard. I've gotten a little bit more used to it now, and like there's food that I like and things I like to do when I'm over there now, so it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. But yeah, just in general, it's a little bit more laid back over there. For instance, that Florent Richet I was talking about is um, very natural talent. A lot of the guys are like that. There's not much like they don't really train super gnarly. A lot of them don't. There are some that are just opposite ends of the spectrum, but there's some guys over there that it's just natural talent and really laid back. They're hanging out in the pits together, drinking coffee together, and it's just kind of a different atmosphere. So that's fun. But on the Supercross side here in the States is pretty cool too, where it's a little bit more serious and a lot of work goes into it and a lot of reward. So,
right. Now, obviously, you're getting a ton of seat time as compared to not racing over there. Are you finding it to be advantageous just from being on a different type of track with a different environment? Take out just the seat time. Are you finding that it's helping your racing here?
Yeah, I think no matter what, I mean, you're a racer, so I think no matter what, more seat time and gate time is the key. Being on the starting line with other guys and that intensity that you get right off the bat is definitely better. It's a little bit tighter racing, so there's a lot more like chess game type stuff that goes on where you got to know, okay, this guy's going to go under me here, I'm going to go under him there. A little bit, you have to be like smarter about your moves and play your race out. So I think that's beneficial as well. But I think mostly it's just being able to keep racing throughout the year. While everybody's maybe at the test tracks or practice tracks training and getting ready for Supercross, you're actually in the real thing over there.
Yeah, those extra gate drops are priceless.
Yeah.
This just gave me another thought. What's your thoughts on the whole arena cross and lack thereof and the Supercross futures? Obviously, you were an awesome arena cross guy. What do you think of that dissolving?
I think it's a bummer. I grew up racing arena cross. Ever since I was 7 years old, every winter, that's what I did. Um, and it was a good spot for, guys that don't get to go to Florida or California or all these like warm weather states to be able to ride during the winter. That was a good spot for us to still get some seat time and ride dirt bikes. Growing up was, these arena cross series in the winter. I raced in horse barns and stuff like that, as well as the full on series. And to see it go is a little bit heartbreaking. I don't know how I feel about the Supercross futures. From what I've seen, it doesn't really compare at all to actual Supercross. The only way that Arena Cross was a pretty far cry as well, as far as like tracks and stuff go. But it was.
But at least the obstacles were there was big whoops, and it would.
Yes,
in my opinion, it's more realistic.
Yes, exactly. Like it at least had some like large berms, big whoops, and actual rhythm sections, as well as the night show format is something very hard to get used to coming from the amateur scene to the pro scene. You have to get used to the time qualifying and moving into the night show and having a long break before your night show is kind of something weird for amateurs to get used to. Where the futures thing, from what I've seen, the tracks are way dumbed down, maybe too much, and then it's just high speed, wide open, pulling on the shifter and scrubbing jumps. Not really like outdoors, but definitely not like Supercross. And then they're just rushing so many classes through. I mean, they're there. I mean, I think they start at like 7 a.m. and then they're it's all night long. It's a long day, and I think they're only doing like 4 or 5 laps. It's kind of it's just a rush thing. So I don't 100% agree with it. I didn't 100% agree with the Arena Cross being the road to Supercross before. I think it was kind of its own thing, but I think it was definitely more beneficial than the futures.
Yeah, I agree with that thought too. I mean, I think Arena Cross should have stood more on its own, and it does suck to see it go away. But then the question is, how are these guys supposed to score their points? Just at a normal pro-am? I forget how I even got my points.
Yeah, same here.
I can't remember, to be honest with you. I think I got it when I did Arena Cross that year in 2010, when I rode for the Babbitt's GPF team.
Oh yeah, yep.
And I think I just scored them without even realizing I was scoring them.
Yeah.
But for most guys, if I hadn't I got that ride and my travel was paid for it, that I'm sure it would have been a pain in the butt for me to even get my Supercross license to begin with, because we didn't have the money to travel to all these things and to make that happen. Yeah. It seems as though they're making it harder and harder, which I get. I mean, you see a handful of guys out there each weekend that certainly don't belong out there and that have maybe just been grandfathered in.
Right.
But then you have kids like, I trained Tyler Stepik. He's from Maryland, very, very fast rider, but has no money and can't afford to go to all these rounds. So the chance of him ever getting a Supercross license is slim to none. But,
yeah, it's unfortunate we we're to the point that you can see that it doesn't matter how, like, they don't care how much money you have, because to them, if you're the guy that's broke and your bike's dirty or something, they would rather not have you in the show at all. Because there's somebody out there that has the money to go and be in the show.
Yeah, it's a sad reality. I have so many questions. Bryce, do you have... Bear, quiet down over there. Well, I'm on Racer X now and I'm scrolling through. What are your thoughts? How do I want to word this? Now, you've had a reputation in the past as being a dirty rider at times. And let me just say this really quick, because you are honestly, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast right now, you're one of the nicest guys in the pits. You talk to everybody. You're always smiling and joking around. You give everybody the time of day. Never in my career have you cool guyed me, so to speak. You've always given me the time of day. And I can't say that about, most of the other guys, unfortunately. Even if I grew up with them, there's been one time or another where they didn't really care to even make eye contact and say hi to me. And you're absolutely not like that. And it's frustrating for me to see, from the fans' perspective, you kind of be deemed as the dirty rider at times. So, and I know you haven't had a whole lot of controversy since maybe the Cooper Webb incident, however many years ago that was. And now now you're right back on the map as being that guy. So what are your thoughts? Do you consider yourself to be an overly aggressive rider or what?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been aggressive. I'm definitely an aggressive rider. I calmed it down, like the web incident. When I actually hit Cooper, it was strictly like accident. Was riding over my head, trying to stay with him because the little guy was flying. Yeah, and just kind of got out of control going into that corner, clipped the jump, and couldn't really stop. So hit him dang near head on. Um, and then whatever recovered from that. So that got blown out of proportion. It was pretty ugly, pretty quick. Um, anyway, and then moved on from that. But I got to the point where I was like scared to be aggressive in fear of the fans. Like I kind of
Right.
lost. I've always been aggressive and I wouldn't say overly aggressive, but definitely borderline overly aggressive. But that was a strength for me, and I kind of lost that. I had kind of lost my fight for some years. I started getting it back last year a bit, and it felt good. Um, and then yeah, now with the incident with Justin, it's just been yeah, it kind of sucks. You deal with the fans, and some of them are all about it, some of them are not. But
Right.
whatever. I'm old enough now. I don't really care anymore. I got a kid, and I got other cool things going on. So I'm just here
Do
to race my dirt bike, and I know who I am now. So it's
do you
part of it.
see a do you see a difference as far as the fans go now as opposed to, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6 years ago, with just the fact that social media is what it is today? I found that it just seems like people with the outrage culture, if you want to call it that, everyone is just looking for a reason to hop on the bandwagon of hating somebody.
Definitely. There's so many bandwagon haters out
Yeah.
there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the way social media is now, like, and that's what I learned, a couple years ago with the web incident too, is that the it seems like the haters voice their opinion more, or like the people that have negative things to say or want to say negative things, have they voice their opinion more. I don't know if it's because they have other things going on in their life that they want to, act out on or be angry about, and they need an outlet for it, and then they have their, they can be anonymous on the computer and or on social media and finally do that, whether and outlet their rage from their normal life in general on something. I don't know if that's it or if it's just the fact that like if you're just like Yelp reviews, if you go to a
I was
restaurant,
just
it's
gonna
not.
say.
Yeah, like if you go have a great dinner at a restaurant, you're just like, oh, that was a great dinner. I'm gonna go home now. This is awesome. It's not like you're gonna go. I try to make it
Right.
a point to try to leave good reviews because I know that like most of the time the negative reviews are the only thing that gets voiced.
Hmm.
If you have a bad time, you're more like, hey, let's write a review about that. That was horrible. So I don't know if that's it or like exactly what's going on, but yeah, it definitely seems like more people like to just kind of hate on social media nowadays.
You're totally right about that. How much of a actual effect does it have on you, or does it have on Brady? Because I will say, like, with the whole experience I went through a few weeks ago, and I've gone through
Yeah,
stuff in the past as well, maybe
yeah,
not on that scale, but for me, I think maybe I'm used to it, and I'm sure you've gotten used to it, but to some level, it does cause anxiety. And I see for Allie, and maybe Brady could attest to this too. Oh, holy cow!
yeah. You can hear mine over there.
It's not bear
Yeah,
barking for once, at least. Um,
yeah,
I see Brady sometimes hop on and try to defend you, and Allie would do that sometimes with me. And I'm like, Allie, don't even bother. You're wasting your time. And she's like, I have anxiety, and she just wants to respond and tell all these people to f off.
yeah, yeah. But a lot of times, I think that's what a lot of them are looking for. Because I've had some that I've responded to, like they've said some pretty nasty things, and you respond to them, and then they're like, "Oh, dude, I love you, man. Like I've always been a fan since your arena cross days." And I'm like, dude, are you serious? And like
Hmm.
I had a guy on Twitter a while back that did that, and I went to his profile and like he's like I think he made a fake profile just like hate on me because the only things he's ever tweeted before that were like from years ago when the web incident was there, and he was like hating on me there, and I'm like, what the heck? So I'm like, dude, really? Like, because you were hating on me back then, now you say you love me? Like, you're whatever. But it's definitely it's definitely hard because no matter how hard you try not to let it get to you or like try not to see it, like those things that you always see these words and these negative comments, and it's hard to not let those speak to your subconscious. So I try really hard at it. most of the guys, you can tell some of them are like 7-year-old kids that
Right.
got, for some reason, got a social media account, or some guys that like have no clue anything about actual Supercross. They're like, either they don't have a dirt bike, or they're just like woods riders or something. And it's just like, you try not to let it get to you. But yeah, for sure, like seeing it definitely affects your subconscious no matter what.
Yes, I can attest to that. And how much of this translates to actual real life hate? How many times have you had fans come up and express their views to you in person?
Never. Not
Never.
once.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I've never once. Yeah.
Right.
Not once.
That's the
Not
thing
once
about
have
the
I.
internet.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like everybody tries to like get behind this curtain of anonymity
Yeah.
and white. It's called white knighting. There's like an actual term for it. It's called white knighting, and everyone tries to jump on this bandwagon. And you know what's the hardest part? Because it was funny because when AJ went through all that a couple weeks ago, I got lumped into it too because
Yeah,
there
you're
was
in
a
it.
lot of assumption that it was me that was talking to
Yeah.
AJ on that clip. I'm like, so I jumped in to defend myself, but I found myself trying to defend AJ too, and it's like, why am I doing this? Why am I
Yeah.
even engaging with these people? But
Yeah, you're not
I
gonna
think
win.
what gets
Yeah.
no, you're definitely not going to win. But I think what gets lost on a lot of these kids is like they look at themselves as one person and not the collective. When I guess we'll call it a victim, is getting all of those individuals at once, and
Yeah.
it adds up, and it's crappy.
Yeah, I think people need to realize it isn't just them sending one hateful message. They have to realize that for someone like you or myself in the situation, you're getting hundreds, if not thousands, of people
Yeah.
sending that same thing.
Well, I
But
think people forget too. Like, I see with Brady's profile all the time. Like, it's not necessarily hate things on her profile. Maybe it's just some disgusting things that people like feel like they can say because it's a picture.
Right.
A girl in a picture. They don't always realize that they're speaking to a person behind that picture. That there's a photo on Instagram or something, and there's actually a person behind that posted that image and said something on the caption, and there's a real life human being on the other side of that phone. A lot of people think they're just
Right.
hating on this image on the laptop or on the phone or whatever it may be. They think they're just hating on this entity there, and don't really remember that there's a live person on the other side.
yeah,
Sure.
that's a good point too. And yeah, it's funny that you said no one ever, because same exact thing for me. And I always that's become kind of my go-to response if somebody really feels the need to keep coming at me online. I just say, listen, you know the Supercross schedule, come and say something to me at the race. And a lot of them take that as in like, I want to fight. That's absolutely,
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
want to fight you. I just come up and, express your views to me in person if you really have the
Yeah.
courage to do so. No one has. And I'd
Never.
imagine especially you. I mean, as small as I
Yeah.
am, I could probably stick up for myself pretty decent, but I'm sure you could beat up pretty much anybody that comes to you to say anything. But it's just
yeah.
it's a crazy world we live in. I tell you what, I'm scared for when I have a kid and they have to go to school, and
Dude, yeah.
it's brutal, huh?
So bad. Yeah. I hate social media. Like, I absolutely wish it never started, and I don't like messing with it. It's not my thing. I let my wife do most of my stuff on there just because it's, yeah, for me, I'd rather just go live in the world and do real life stuff.
If I wasn't in the position I was in where I rely heavily on it for a lot of things, and I wasn't a pro dirt bike rider, I absolutely would not have it, because honestly, there's so much negativity that comes from it.
Absolutely.
It's bizarre.
Well, let's get back on the rails here, AJ.
Yeah, I want to talk specifically about this.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the main reasons why Tyler's on today, and in watching the race live, we saw this unfold. It didn't seem to be that big of a deal. It was a hard, aggressive pass. It was a takeout, but it was another disproportionate response. I think you handled it exceptionally well on social media, Tyler. I think your statement was perfect, and anybody who followed it, it was thorough. It made all the right points without being like too dramatic. But I want to know your take on it in real time, like as it happened, because there was a lot that was occurring that the TVs didn't capture, or the cameras didn't capture, that didn't air on TV. And I'm interested to know how much that in itself played in a factor in it, that it was aired and the other stuff wasn't. How much was a result of it being a retaliation? So kind of take us through what ended up being the pass that disqualified you from the night.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get hung up on it's just like retaliation, but like the things that happened with Barsha and I, last year was a year ago. It's 6-7 rounds in now, and I've had plenty of chances to retaliate over that incident. But Saturday night, my main thing was just to race with him the same aggression that he's been racing with me for a while now. I've had a couple incidents with him again this year where he's literally like jumped into corners while I'm exiting corners and hit me damn near head on. Luckily, neither one of us went down, but it's just been like, dude, really? So on Saturday night, somebody was behind me and they're just like revving the crap out of their bike, over revving everywhere. And I'm like, dude, who is this? And then finally I caught a blue front fender and I'm like, of course it's Barsha. Here it is. Yeah, the guy that's on the rev limiter everywhere. So revving everywhere and doing all that and just making whatever. So that just sucks when somebody's behind you and you got that. I would kind of gap him here and there, then come back up on me. And then he kind of tried to go around me on that option section on the outside. And I had inside leverage going into the next turn, and we pulled up next to each other in the rhythm section. And then the last one that was like cut away, when we came off of that, like I had full intent to go in and bump him and just be aggressive in that corner. But when he came off the last one, he tried to like jump and cover the inside really hard, really quick, kind of caught me off guard, and then it got even messier. I was full on admit, yes, I was going to bump the crap out of him. Maybe him go down, maybe not, but not as bad as it turned out to be. But I do 100% agree that it was maybe over the top and I deserve some kind of penalty. Disqualification, I think, was a little bit next level. But that's a decision made by John Gallagher that I think he lets his emotions get caught up in it a little bit too much. After talking with John after the race, or trying to speak with John after that incident, he was way too caught up in his emotions and screaming and yelling to the point where he had to leave the room. And I had to sit and talk with Mike Pelletier at AMA because John just couldn't handle himself. And I think a person in that position of power shouldn't be letting their emotions get that involved. John acted like I took him out in that corner, so it was pretty insane.
These decisions should be as objective as possible. And I think that's the problem here, is there's such a gray area with all of it. Where do you make that decision? Because I have it playing on my computer screen right now as I watch it back. Yeah, his bike flew over the berm. You both crashed, but it certainly wasn't the worst takeout I've ever seen. It looked like you, in fact, grabbed the front brake at one point. The reason his bike flew over the berm was because Barsha doesn't like to let off. He just kind of whiskeyed the bike.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, so it became over dramatic in that sense as well. And I know I've been docked in an LCQ, or actually it was a semi, for aggressive riding, and I was just given last position in that race. So it seems like there's no consistent punishment. There's no consistent rule on what's what. Now, what was the process? So after that happened, you come off the track. What was the series of events?
I just came off the track, grabbed my mechanic, Chaz, and we went up to the truck and we made sure the levers and stuff were good, because I actually had another crash after that. Two riders got together in front of me and I was like sandwiched in between them. So anyway, I had to like straighten my levers and bars out, and then we got back down to the starting line for LCQ. Chaz is sitting in staging and I'm just sitting there, where all the riders watch behind the starting gate, and I was watching, the races before me, and everything was chill. And then the AMA FIM officials come up and ask to speak with me, so I walk back with them into a room, and we just talked for a second. But it was
Did that surprise you?
No, of course not. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, after what happened, I figured they would come talk to me, and I think they should. My big deal is, it's been brought to their attention with people like Justin. Like when he broke my leg in Vegas, they called me afterwards and like, well, we don't know what we're going to do about it, because disqualifying him or docking him, it's the last race of the year. He wasn't in the points. It's really not going to do anything anyway. And they actually said it's not going to unbreak your leg, and I'm like, are you serious? Like,
Hmm.
that's literally what John
But
Gallagher
it
told
sends
me
a
on the phone.
message.
Yes, it
But at
does.
least it sends a message.
It
Right.
does. It 100%. But it was, and they also said, well, because you didn't finish the race, you got last anyway. So like docking him, whatever. He's like one position behind you, and I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, okay. That was their reasoning for not doing it when he broke my
God,
leg.
that is
And then,
absolutely not the point of
I mean,
docking somebody.
right.
Well,
And then
yeah, exactly.
And then coming into this year, the incident in Oakland, I brought it to their attention. I said, dude, do your job, like fix it. And they're whatever. They're not going to do it. They didn't do anything. And then there's these other incidents that they need to have the same across the board. I don't think I needed to be disqualified, but maybe a fine or docking some positions or points or whatever it may be. But they need to do that across the board in all the incidences. If mine was worthy of disqualification, the Oldenburg incident was worthy of something in general,
Yep.
whether that be a couple positions,
Absolutely.
but they didn't do anything in that incident. And then these other
It's
incidences, they don't do anything in those either.
it's an almost indistinguishable clip of
Yeah.
him of Oldenburg and you. I mean, it almost completely indistinguishable. So the fact that there was no action taken there and you were DQ'd is crazy to me. I'm wondering, how much do you think it was a factor if you had hit a privateer in the same way?
Yeah.
You think you would have had a similar punishment?
No, I think that's a big deal too. Is Justin's the whatever the top AMA guy or I'm sorry, the top Yamaha guy. Right now, he's there. Everybody's got their kind of number one, their number two riders, and right now, Justin's the top Yamaha guy, and I don't even think Justin was that upset about it. I think it was more, Yamaha and Gallagher got together, and I don't know what kind of relationship they got going on over there, but they were pretty adamant about it. So I think it's definitely this dirty little privateer, broke guy took out our superstar. But the problem is their superstar does it every weekend and doesn't get reprimanded of it, and he should. It doesn't matter if it's the superstar, the privateer, for a championship, for last place in LCQ. Doesn't matter. There needs to be a standard across the board, and there's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Barsha, he hits guys on the way by just to hit him. It seems like. I mean, he's passed me this year
Yeah.
coming through the pack when I'm in 10th place in a heat race or something, and he
Like
would have
goes out of
easily
his
just
way.
he
Yeah.
would have easily just gone by me. It's not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he was going plenty fast enough to just go around me,
Mm.
and yet he still makes the contact. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Did you talk to Justin at all after the Vegas incident or after this incident? Have you spoken with him?
No. Ever since Vegas, he just avoids me at all costs. Like I see him at track walk or whatever, and he ducks his head and turns the other way. So,
Yeah.
but I think that's bad. I think we needed to talk about it. He needed to see where we're both at on it, and whatever time time heals wounds, and that I've probably moved on, and it's not as bad as he may think. So,
Yeah, that's tough too, because I mean, Justin and I used to be great friends when we were amateurs, and then we went our separate ways a bit. And he seems like a nice kid. He's just one of those where he gets on the bike and he's not so nice.
yeah.
It was more of it. Or yeah, this whole thing was more of you sticking up for yourself on the track rather than retaliation in my mind, because like you said, he's continuing to do these little things to you.
Yeah.
You broke your leg in Vegas, and yeah, that's a pretty big deal. But since then, he's been, you said he's hit you a few times, and you haven't done anything back. That would probably piss me off a little bit too.
Yes.
And I'd be like, listen, I got to do something to this. Not like retaliation, do something, but at least like show this guy he can't push me around all season long.
Exactly. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to let you walk all over me. And unfortunately, because I'm the bigger guy, I get named as the bully, and I fit that script because I'm the bigger guy in the series and bigger than in the confrontation with Justin, and I'm the bigger guy. So I just fit the bully script. So it looks like in reality I was the one getting bullied the whole time, and I wasn't going to stand for it, but here we are.
Random question, but how much of your aggression on the bike throughout your career has been due to the fact that you could beat these guys up off the track? It sounds like a weird question, but does that give you confidence to be like, I can, I don't care, I'm not scared of anybody type of thing?
Yeah, what are you going to do about it type of attitude?
I don't know, because like I've never been the guy to try to like fight anybody off the track. Like no matter how crazy it got on the track, like I think at the races for sure, like don't get into it. Away from the races, it's another story. But if you're I think it's very I think it's very trashy to, after the race, grab somebody by the helmet and yell at them and yell this and that in the tunnel and do that whole thing. I think leave it on the track and move on.
Of course, but that doesn't give you any additional confidence in your aggressive riding. Like, listen, this guy, because sometimes, I've been one to get pushed around
Right.
or to be scared of guys that are aggressive. But then if I sit there and think to myself for a second, I'm probably stronger than 95% of the guys out on this track. Why am I so scared of them? With the exception of you and Weston Pike and a couple others, like I wouldn't be afraid of anybody off of the bike. So why am I so afraid of them on the bike?
Yeah. I think just like when you're on the bike, it's like a little bit more even, you know what I mean? Like you're using the bike as a weapon at that point. So even if you're a little guy, you can still have a 200-pound bike that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and Justin's one of the best at it.
Yes.
And he's a little guy off the bike, but he's strong on it.
Yep.
Just talking about aggressive riding and guys who are consistently bumping and riding a little too aggressive. Obviously, Vince Freeze comes into mind. I have to say that a couple of years ago, Weston Pike going to town on the back of Freeze's helmet is one of my favorite moments in Monster Energy Supercross history. I'm just kidding. We should start adopting more of the hockey fight model. See what happens.
Where it's allowed. And then
where
everyone goes their separate ways.
So, yeah.
And for that, he got a $5,000
sure.
fine and suspended one race.
Hey, did you get fined at all for this incident?
No, I didn't.
It wasn't egregious. I mean, that's the frustrating part. Watching it just completely removed from the situation, I can't even imagine what you're feeling about it. But it wasn't an egregious looking takeout. It really wasn't. You look back in the last couple of years at the incidents that have occurred on the track that were way worse. Ryan, look at what happened to Ryan Dungey and James Stewart a few years back. Almost took him out of the whole season. And that's just one of the things. Like, there's what you didn't look egregious when it happened in real time. I didn't drop my jaw to the floor. It was just like, okay, he gave him a little nudge. Good, especially because it was Barsha and his reputation. Like, I was like, all right, good for Tyler.
Yeah, I agree with that. Shoot, I just had a really good question and I lost it, Bryce.
Sorry.
You made me lose it. Shoot. Wow, I totally lost it.
Move on. You're okay. Breathe.
Well, what else you got, Bryce? I know I have a few more, but I don't want to take us off the rails too much. I'm good at getting us off track.
Well, I guess one of the questions to follow up with Tyler about this incident is how do you guys as riders promote a more objective approach to these types of decisions? Do you have any sort of voice, and can you use your newly unified kind of group that you're dealing with Feld to make a case to the AMA and FIM on how these kinds of situations are being dealt with?
I think maybe. I think, like you said, to hit on the point about our voice is no, we don't have a voice. It kind of depends on how big your team is, honestly. I know when I was at Factory Kawasaki and the incident happened with Justin in Vegas where he broke my leg, I never said anything to anybody. I didn't go anywhere. The team officials went to AMA, FIM and tried to deal with it there. And, I never dealt with anybody until, like I said, after the fact. John called me on Monday afterwards and spoke on the phone for a bit, and that was about it. But and in this case, with Justin, he didn't have to do anything. It was all Jim Perry and the guys at Yamaha raising a fit. So for me, it kind of sucks because I think on the TV, people saw me in the tunnel talking to Jim Perry a bit. It maybe makes me look bad, but really it's a two-man show at my team. It's myself and Chaz is
right.
Holding the bike, trying to get it ready for the LCQ, and I'm having to deal with these officials and team members. I am my own team manager, so that's I have to stand up for myself. So I am my own voice. So sometimes it sucks because I have to do the racing and that side of it. And it maybe makes me look worse because these other guys can just not have to be the ones to say anything bad to the officials, and send their team managers up there to deal with it. But here I am. I have to deal with it personally. So I think what we're trying to do with the Feld and AMA and FIM, it's something I'm definitely going to bring up at the meeting this weekend. Calm and collected, and just let them know that there needs to be more of a standard, and I don't know how to do it. There's a guy that's been there for years that is always making these rash decisions quickly based on emotion.
Mm-hmm.
He did it with Reed and Kennard incident back in the day. He's done it with me numerous times, to the point where he pulled me into the middle of the track while the TV's still rolling after a heat race in front of thousands of people, and is putting his finger inside my helmet, yelling at me. So like I'm a stepson or something. It's not it's not it's not right. It's not right at all for somebody in that position to do that.
He came at me pretty aggressive after the MetLife incident when I T-boned Dakota Tedder, and I'll stick with my story forever because it's the truth. Is that I didn't do that on purpose. And that was my argument back to him, and we're yelling at each other at this point on the line in front of everybody, and I'm like, listen, play that back. I was skimming a hay bale with my feet off the pegs. Do you think I did that intentionally?
Yes.
And it's like, how are you gonna? And he was just so angry that what am I gonna say to change his mind at that point? I remember my question now.
Go ahead.
Bryce, do you haven't?
No, go ahead.
Oh my God, now I forgot it again. Oh, have you seen any, or have you heard any negative responses actually from your sponsors, or how have they all responded to it?
No, yeah, everybody's in my corner. I get texts from a lot of the guys from like Kawasaki and stuff right away that just, people that are, that guy's been deserving it, and props for standing up for yourself, I haven't received anything negative yet, at least.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, at least those guys are sticking in your corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the scary thing about nowadays is with the whole everyone outraged and jumping on the bandwagon to hate somebody. If you have that one company or individual that takes that as reality, that's the scary part, is that it doesn't take much for something like that to happen. But I know Chaz is helping you out, and Chaz is an amazing guy.
I think the overwhelmingly large response is everybody is kind of thought that he deserved it, or is on board on the same page. Even to points like like people that are like the hateful comments or whatever. There's definitely a few, but I feel like there's more on my side, But to the point where I actually have to tell people to calm down, because like I said, I know it was maybe a little over the top, So there's some people like, oh, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. That was just Rubbin's racing, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you know what? Okay. So yeah, to the point where
right, and you hop on and almost start defending Justin at that point. Well, listen, it was kind of.
Yeah. There's been some people where I'm like, man, you guys are hating on Justin like pretty hard here. I don't think he deserves all that. So it's kind of So I think the overwhelmingly vast majority of people are kind of on my side.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think if people knew you as a human being and even talked to you for 2 minutes, they would realize how genuine and humble and nice that you actually are. So that's good to hear, at least.
Yeah, thank you.
I need
to get that out more. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's tough. I mean, like, we're professional athletes, and on your page, like, you can only post so much personal stuff, and even that doesn't really get through your personality. And then when you're in front of the fans, it's 99% of the time it's on race day, and you're focused on what you're doing. Yeah. So the fans don't see you at your most, talkative and all of that. So that's tough. But what I always tell people is, just come talk to me for 30 seconds for a minute. And if you think you hate me right now, I promise you will leave that conversation and think differently about me.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this guy's not that bad. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that goes for majority of the riders, even guys like, like Barsha and people that, that have, a reputation. I think, like, if they actually sat down and talked with a lot of these guys, even a lot of the guys that seem like real dicks out there, or most of them are just like super socially awkward and like kind of scared to talk, after meeting a lot of them myself, and just knowing how most of us are. A lot of the people would be surprised to hang out with a group of us and just realize we're all just human beings, and most of us are pretty cool. Like nobody goes out of their way just to be dicks, you know?
Right. Like I would
Right.
see Tomac as being one of those where he comes off as kind of a dick, but I think he's just an introvert.
Yeah, he's super introverted. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, when I filled in with him, I couldn't get him to talk for a while, and finally I was like, dude, I'm gonna get this guy to talk. Like, and like, I just started like pushing it really hard, and he was super open. I just had to initiate the conversation every time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, Bryce.
Well, we're right at an hour, so I know you are a busy guy. We definitely appreciate you coming on and talking to us, and we wish you the very best with everything this season and all of your talks with the AMA, the FIM, and Feld. I know AJ's involved in that also. We've been exiting every podcast with predictions, although they haven't really come to true very much. This season's kind of just a crapshoot for everybody. But who's your favorite for the championship as it's playing out right now?
I mean, obviously Webb. I think Webb. I said at the beginning, Cooper is a guy that runs off confidence, and it's not. I don't think it's a new bike. I don't think it's a new program, anything like that. I think if you let him get a good practice under his belt and like a good qualifying time, let's say he qualifies like top 3 in a practice, it's going to be a rough night for a lot of people. If he goes from there and he maybe wins a heat race, then we're pretty much screwed. And then after winning a heat race, if he wins the main, you better look out. And, that's kind of what's happened. He's got some confidence under his belt, and especially after this weekend where he came from behind and made a pass at the very end, like the guy's on fire right now. And I think we all better call in for help. Because like that's why people say he's cocky. He runs off confidence, and he gets a touch of that confidence, which is what he never really had at the Yamaha team. He never really had a good weekend where he could just kind of fire up his confidence and keep it rolling. And now he's had a few of those in a row, and then I think it's gonna get pretty ugly.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, I think
true.
I think a lot of us just run off sheer confidence, and especially at that top level, a lot of the guys are on the same level, and the bikes and stuff are working great, and they got they work together with their team so well, and it's just literally a confidence thing that gets them to the next level.
Yep, sure is. We stress that all the time in this podcast too. I think people underestimate, especially a guy like Webb, a guy like Barsha. They run so much off of that confidence in the moment. They feed off it like crazy.
Yeah, even Tomac, man, you get that guy a little bit of confidence, and he's just gonna stomp all over everybody, And I think it's just kind of where we're at now. There's so many guys on the same level, and it's just who's kind of believing in themselves is what takes it to the next level.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
For sure.
Cool. Well, Tyler, thank you again for joining us. Go get some rest. Take some medicine. Don't take me out next weekend.
Word. No problem. Should be easy.
But hey, thank you for staying on. When we end this convo, don't exit the app so we don't lose this conversation, please.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. All right, man. Thanks again. All right. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good talking to you.
All right. Adios.
All right. See you.